America's cattle producers have worked for generations to protect the land, water, and air resources in their care. Let's check in again with Kate Maher, who's with a Texas rancher who's facing challenges while providing the best possible care for his land and his livestock.
We're here in north central Texas on the historic J.A. Ranch with Reuter Brite. Reuter, this ranch has been in your family for a very long time. Can you give us a little history of the place, please?
Well, my grandfather put this ranch together starting in 1929, and it's composed of several different properties, and up until '01, everything that was part of this ranch was all foreclosures and bankruptcies. So you can imagine it probably didn't come to us under the best of conditions. It had been grossly overgrazed, and even people that thought they were doing a good job, they didn't do a good job because they didn't know to do a good job. The science behind grazing management and land management is advanced and still advancing. What we know today probably is going to look pretty foolish 50 years from now or 100 years. I hope it looks foolish. I hope we really make some strides, but that's where we are right now.
And kind of learn some lessons along the way, right?
A lot of lessons. We hope we don't forget.
Right, right. So maybe talk a little bit about the management practices. How are you taking care of the natural resources on your ranch as you put this together?
Well, we've gone from historically set stock rate. Each pasture had a stocking rate, and the cattle were in that pasture year-round and never varied. If you got real dry, may back off a little bit. If it's a good year, you might add a little bit, but not very much. But starting in about 2 to 3 weeks from now, we'll start consolidating herds of cattle, and we'll have them down to about 2 herds. And we'll start moving cattle about every 2 days. And the faster the grass grows, the faster we move them. It starts to slow down, then we'll go to moving about once a week. And then we start calving, we disperse, and we'll move cattle out into 10 or 12 different pastures, sometimes 14 different pastures. And they'll sit in those pastures for about 60 days at a time as we calve out.
So it's really working the cattle and the lands together then?
They have to work together.
Speaking of that, you've been very involved in the Grazing Lands Coalition. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why work that coalition does is so important to yourself and other ranchers?
Well, what we're trying to do with it is show people how with good management they can lower their costs, they can lower their labor requirements, and give them more security into the future. And it is so simple. We have not had the success that we should have had, but we're constantly trying to get that message out. And we want to get it out through any avenue possible. Cattleman's wonderful. Noble research is great. Natural resource conservation is great. But it takes a personal effort with one person working with another person. Money to do projects doesn't solve it. It's intelligence, transferring that science-based intelligence to those producers. They're all trying to do a good job. Nobody is ever going to intentionally destroy their property, but they make mistakes because sometimes a very subtle little adjustment, but they fail to recognize that on a timely basis, and things start rolling downhill. Grass grows grass, and the more grass we produce, the more security we have, and the less problems we encounter as we move forward.
You can't talk about grazing and cattle without talking about water. Can you talk a little bit about what you think about the Waters of the U.S. rule and how that could impact the work that you do on your ranch and even in the Grazing Coalition?
Well, I think Waters of the U.S. is an absolute grab of, again, people that are so far removed, they think they can fix something. The only way we fix it is right here on my land with me taking care of it, and when I see a need that I'm able to act on it and take the action that I need to take at that point. If I have to go through a bureaucracy, it's absolutely a disaster. There's an old saying that when everyone owns it, it's cared for as if no one owns it. And look at the federal lands and the gross mismanagement that happens on those lands. And that's not to mean that within those agencies there are not some great individuals, but when you disperse it, it's an absolute wreck. And we've got 100 years of proving it. It's not something that's questionable.
So when we talk about sustainability, which is a big topic for our industry and all industries, why is sustainability so important to your ranch and to the beef industry as a whole?
Well, sustainability goes back to that to meeting the individual needs at in a timely manner as you need to do it. If we get a little more rainfall and the grass gets ahead of us, we can stock a little heavier. And we run transects on this ranch every year. It shows us a trend line. And as our grass density improves and the percentage of the higher quality plants improve, then we know that we can up our stocking rate a little bit. But if we see that trend line starting to go down, then we know that we need to back off and change what we're doing a little bit. And all this is subtle. And that's what we're seeing. And every time we go through a drought, the drought of the 30s, the drought of the 50s, drought of 11, people that don't make the adjustments, we're seeing a continued degradation of the productivity of that land. It's not coming back. Now, it doesn't mean it can't come back, but you're extended the period of time and the resources required to bring it back. So timeliness is everything on grazing land management.
Sure, and taking that information and using it to be able to manage through those droughts and unpredictable conditions is a big part of sustainability. Reuter, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for having us out here at your beautiful ranch. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.